What a week it has been. So, I'm developing a personal knowledge management and social media application for developers that I'm calling Dev CheatSheets. Over the last week, I've primarily focused most of my efforts on the personal knowledge management side. I'm going to get a little bit more into kind of the way I envision the design of the product working here in a second. But last week, I was working on authentication and kind of trying to wrap my head around NextAuth because I've used it several times, but haven't necessarily gotten my brain around how it works. This week, I had like a great aha moment and I kind of just get it now. All of it kind of works through callbacks, and the documentation kind of, for some reason, cleared up for the first time for me in ages. So now I understand the auth and it's implemented for Google. I'm going to work on implementing it for Email Pass and GitHub over the next week, but I'm primarily focused on the actual features itself. So what I envision with Dev CheatSheets is fairly simple, and I'm going to kind of walk through this on Excalibur real quick. So basically, I'm going to have two sides, sort of, to Dev CheatSheets. So Dev CheatSheets approach. So the approach is two-sided. You've got personal knowledge management here. So we've got personal knowledge management, and you've got the social aspect of it as well. And I'm basically going to combine these two into two products, or I guess one product with two different purposes. So we've got our personal knowledge management and we've got our social media side. And basically what's going to happen is these two are going to combine into one singular product or approach. Let's actually do this. And we're going to call it social knowledge management. If you're not familiar with personal knowledge management, the idea is fairly simple. You're going to have a structured way of taking all of the information that you need for your job, whether that's like art or software development or engineering or whatever, and you're going to kind of structure it in a way that makes it easy to find, easy to link together, and easy to produce whatever it is you're trying to produce. So a lot of folks in the personal knowledge management space are in academia. So they're, creating these white papers and things like that, like long-term research. For me, I've used several different personal knowledge management applications like Obsidian, Notion, things like that, and they haven't really been great, in my opinion, because they're not super collaborative. So it's just me working on my personal knowledge management base, and there's no collaboration with other developers. There's no way to there's no social aspect to it. And I think that there is a lot of value in creating the synthesis of a personal knowledge management application and a social media application. And that's what I'm trying to do with Dev CheatSheets. So with the personal knowledge management stuff, you've got, linking or thinking obviously is the big one. I can't remember that guy's name, but he's kind of been behind the Obsidian push and, was at one point talking about Rome and other personal knowledge management apps. But I think he's mainly in Obsidian. And the idea there is to create resources. Then you link those resources together. So link resources and manage resources. So manage resources. And if you look at videos of Obsidian, the whole kind of approach there is you create these resources and structure them in a certain way and organize them in like your specific way, and then you link them together. So if I've got an article that I read that was about React, then I'm going to link that together with a note that is, basically linking all things React, and then I'm going to link a bunch of other stuff about React, and then there might be some Next.js stuff that links with React, and it's kind of complicated, and you can kind of create your own system for managing your knowledge. That's what personal knowledge management is all about. But that's kind of like the approach. It's all siloed, though. That's kind of the main problem, to me at least, is that you are managing your own knowledge, and there's no collaboration with other people. There's no way that you can kind of share that knowledge out in like a structured manner. That's just kind of it. With social media, it's a little bit different. So you've got the ability to share resources, chat about resources, but there's no management of those resources. So you can kind of like share out a link to a blog. Obviously, I can hop on Twitter and share a link to a blog, and that's really it. But after that's launched out, there's no management of that post. So I've shared that link out. Now, if I want to go find it again, I've got to go just search my timeline. And that blog doesn't link to any code snippets. It doesn't link to any other blogs. It's just a singular resource that is unmanaged and is just there. So you've got this divide between personal knowledge management and social media. And social media is obviously the big one, is collaborative. So if I share out a link to a blog that I really like and somebody else comments on that tweet or that post or whatever and says, hey, I kind of think this, and this about this blog, it's collaborative. You're having discussion there. In personal knowledge management, like Obsidian and Notion, there's not really a discussion there. There's no way to collaborate on that. And even deeper with code, obviously you've got things like Git and GitHub, and those are pseudo-social, so you have the ability to kind of collaborate on code bases and things like that through pull requests, but the focus is not on the social aspect. And if you read discussions on GitHub, you can see that very, very clearly, that, it's not a very social place. It's a place where people complain. It's a place where, people do PRs, and it's a place where people upload their code. I want to create a space that has that collaborative nature of social media, but also has that structured way of managing information in a collaborative way. So this social knowledge management approach that I'm going to take takes all of the structured information management and makes it collaborative. So I share a link out and somebody says, okay, well, there's an interesting snippet in this blog that I want to talk about. They should have the ability to pull that quote out of the blog and say, I want to discuss this and this and this way. Or if there's a code snippet that somebody shares and they say, hey, I'm having this issue with this code base, a person should be able to do like a social pull request and say, well, why did you do things this way? Let's discuss that in this thread. Or I would recommend doing it this way, and they can share their own code snippet that is in their personal knowledge management system. And all of this is collaborative, and it's all managed and searchable. And I've got a bunch of really cool like data sciencey stuff that I want to do with this, but that's way on down the line. This week, I focus primarily on the personal knowledge management side. And here's why. I think first what I'm going to do is build out that PKM stuff and have it to where you can manage your information, you can manage your code snippets, you can do all of that and search it, and all of that fun stuff that you would do with a PKM like Obsidian or Notion. And then I'm going to add the social media part as a layer on top of that so that people can start collaborating. Because at the end of the day, the data is the core part of all of this. Like the PKM part of this is the core part of Dev CheatSheets, and it should remain that way. But the social media aspect of it is incredibly important to me. It's going to come, obviously, and I'm going to make sure that like the way that I design the PKM part is going to be like a, basically a way that scales up, into a social media site. So it's going to be difficult. There's some kind of like weird gotchas that I've already kind of run into, but this week I focus primarily on the code snippet upload. So I'm using Theo's upload thing platform to upload code snippets. So you've got basically buckets here where the code itself lives. So that code is going to have a link. And that link, let's just say HTTPS link. And then we're going to have a database that has all of the metadata. So metadb, and that's also going to have this link. All right, and then we'll have obviously the user database right here. And it's got links to all of the posts in the metadatabase. So that's kind of how everything is focused right now. I've already got the user database in a state. It's definitely not a finished state. I've already got the code upload working through upload thing. So that's how that works. And if you're not familiar with Upload Thing, it's basically a really nifty wrapper around Amazon S3. And the reason why it's nice that it's a wrapper is that I do not want to have to deal with AWS S3. It's a pain in the ass. I've used it before. So you definitely want to have a wrapper like that. It's super fun, and it's honestly a lot cheaper than I was expecting. Like Theo has created a great thing there. So this is kind of like the schema that I'm working with right now. And that eventually the social aspect is going to pull from this meta DB, the user DB, and eventually the code DB, so that you can like actually display your code snippets. So that's what we're working with right now. It's messy, it's not perfect, and it's going to be iterated upon, but that's where we're at right now. Over the next week, I'm going to get code snippet uploads done, get a little bit more work done on the auth, and then put some information out on the landing page. I've also created a newsletter that you can subscribe to get a lot of updates. Well, not a lot, but weekly updates. So I'll leave a link to that down in the description. The support for Dev CheatSheets has been awesome so far. We've got 95 people on the newsletter, which is great. But yeah, that's about it for this week. Take it easy. Peace.